Okay. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Enlightened Couch Potato Show. I am the me part of the show, which is the Adrianne Gunn part, and I'm here with...
the not you part of the show, which is the Nicholas Rave part of the show.
Yay!
And here in this show, we explore how to watch movies and TV for maximum psychological and spiritual development.
Yes. And we lately just let Nicholas say it because it's beautiful. We should still make the shirts.
Yeah. the
Yes.
the acronym. Yeah. It's really catchy.
TV deeply here. Although I have been movieing deeply. We don't have to necessarily talk about them, but I wrote the list. So like
Sure.
last week, I had also watched Contact and we didn't talk about it. But apparently I continued my watching all of the Kate Winslet movies.
Yeah.
Because you had mentioned Holiday Vacation, so I watched it.
That's the one.
And then
who's the other male lead in that one?
Motherfucker.
Is it like Hugh Jackman or something?
Nope. It's the pretty
British
guy from Captain Marvel. Yes, British.
Oh, Jude Law.
Thank you, Jude Law.
He is pretty, isn't he?
Yeah. And Cameron Diaz, who's not necessarily my favorite to watch. I quite like her in The Sweetest Thing. And I love her in that movie with Tom Cruise where they're making fun of all of Tom Cruise's movies.
Mm-hmm.
A night something.
I can't remember. I know what you're talking about. It was like a spy movie. And it came out right around the same time as Ashton Kutcher and Katherine Heigl were in a movie that was very similar. Yeah. And I remember being like, how does this happen? Why do you have Armageddon and shit? What was the other one? There was another asteroid movie. It was much more serious than Armageddon, and they happened like right at the same time. It's always strange to me that there was the John Favreau Jungle Book and the Andy Serkis Jungle Book that came out like 3 months apart.
Right.
I don't know how that happens in Hollywood, but I felt like that with the Tom Cruise spy movie. But the Tom Cruise one was way better than the Ashton Kutcher one, I will say. Yeah.
I just love how beautifully meta it is because he's essentially making fun of every movie he's ever done.
Yeah, it was fun.
I also watched The Dressmaker, Little Children, The Mountain Between Us, and Titanic of Kate Winslet.
Wow.
Mountain
Will you
Between
tell me
Us.
about The Mountain Between It?
It's so good.
That's the one I want to hear about the most.
Yeah.
I saw the trailer and I was like, shit, that looks cool.
It is gorgeous and sexy. Apparently, just having watched Titanic and The Mountain Between Us, it's really fun to watch Kate Winslet try to survive.
She's good at that.
awful
it's Idris
things.
Elba, right?
Idris Elba and Kate's characters, they are they hire a private plane to try to get around a storm because their flights out of, I think, Chicago were canceled, but the plane crashes.
Yeah.
And then they have to figure out how
to the Rockies or something.
Yeah. They have to figure out how to survive together. And these two people who are strangers.
Love that stuff.
Yeah. And they don't get on well.
Yeah.
Right away. And how that works out. It is gorgeous and beautiful. And the two of them, I mean, Idris is, I think Kate's weird because depending on the movie, you're allowed to think that she's beautiful or not, or whatever she's doing, whatever everyone else is saying and however they're responding. It's like, is she pretty? What? I don't know. It seems to be up to everyone else but us. Idris is pretty much always beautiful.
Yeah.
And still, there's no vanity. So they've matched well. The chemistry is great. And they matched well on two pretty people being in this horrifying and believable situation. And we're there with them, right? I've talked before about how there are some actors that aren't really matched in their approach to how they do the work and how deeply they allow themselves to be the person in the situation they're in. The two of them are just, and it's like watching prize fighter, like heavyweight champions in the ring just match each other because I love boxing. I'm going with that metaphor. It's so good.
It's great to see anybody at the top of their game and doing something they really love. And the interesting thing about storytelling, movies, and TV is your job is to make something that everybody's going to watch and appreciate. Like, I like watching people who are really good at doing fucking anything. Like, I recently have been watching a lot of like armor, like people making armor.
Oh, cool.
And when you see like the best people in the world, and then you're seeing like them inlay gold, and then it's this freaking amazing sword, and you're like, I love that. But you know, until the internet, people didn't put that stuff on display.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen? Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. What I think is fascinating, what I found myself doing in this particular movie, The Mountain Between Us, or shit, even Titanic, straight up, both movies, I just kept asking myself, would I have made it this far? Now, not knowing the warrior that may kick in and like, oh, it's, you know, true life or death situation, because I do in true high stakes situations, I show up fully and I'm like, gah, and I do the things. I've known that about myself, but in my general day to day, I'm like, I might have just drowned by then.
You might have been laying in your bed waiting for the water.
Yeah, or like, I could just freeze. This is a pretty view. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Not sure. Sorry. So
there's another survival movie called The Edge with Anthony Hopkins and Alec Baldwin. Have you ever seen it?
I'm not sure. No. It doesn't ring a bell just yet.
It's we got lost in Alaska, but there's a twist on it. And the twist is that Anthony Hopkins plays, I don't know, like just some kind of genius. He's like a billionaire and he knows everything, like encyclopedic knowledge. And so he is sort of like outsmarting nature. And then there's this like business takeover subplot of like, it's really interesting. I don't know if it holds up, but I remember being like, wow, this is a cool movie when I watched it. And when you mentioned like Survive and like, are we going to make it? That's the first one that came to mind. Of course, there's lots of those movies, but.
Oh, shit. That just reminds me. I also watched San Andreas.
Oh, okay.
Which
on
is
the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah. Giant earthquake and everybody's trying to survive.
I'm going to save everyone from the giant earthquake with my biceps.
The Rock leads that one. Then, not to be undone by like epic movies, I also finally for the first time watched Avatar.
You've never seen it?
I'd never seen it.
Well, what did you think of Dancing with Smurfs?
I might come back to that. I'm just going to finish this list.
Okay.
I watched Inception and just finished that today.
You've seen that before?
Not at all.
What the holy how can this is not fair. How can you watch Inside, and I want to talk to you about that so much, and you also have watched 15 other movies?
I know, it's insane. I felt bad, but I wrote it down just to make sure that it wasn't crazy. Game Night, which is a very surprising action comedy.
I like that. It was fun.
It's so good.
Yeah.
High Fidelity. Caught up on that because I think you talked about it.
You'd never seen High Fidelity?
No, I had seen it, but I watched it again. It was only the second time I've seen it.
Did you pay attention in the Jack Black singing scene with the backstory that I shared with you?
Yeah.
That scene is so much cooler now. He did look kind of
nervous.
Yeah.
And then I watched Inside. Like, that's a lot. That's a lot of.
There's so many. Like, we could do a whole episode on Contact. We could do a whole episode on Avatar. I mean, thematic, mythological themes and stuff.
Yeah. God,
I don't want to talk about any of those as much as I want to talk about Inside.
Yeah, I'm sure. So I'm loving what my brain is doing with Inception. I don't know if you enjoyed that movie.
Oh my God. Absolutely. I mean, that was the movie that I watched and went, is it possible that he could have come up with this idea without having studied hypnosis?
Right.
And the idea of fractionation.
Yeah.
And I think it is. I think his theory is, or the prevailing story is that he modeled it off of the process of filmmaking, and that the story within a story within a story was a thing that he came up with. But it is a perfect overlap with the concept in hypnosis of fractionation, where you go deeper into the trance with each one. And I remember watching it and halfway through realizing what they were doing, and then going, okay. And then I almost blacked out for the bottom portion, because I just went, all right, I'm going to go deeper with each one. And then I started feeling the time distortion in it. It's such a trancy movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's a great movie.
I kind of love that I just decided to start it knowing I wasn't going to finish it because bedtime last night. And I love that where I paused the movie and I just went back and looked over all of the rules that had been laid out up until that point. So I'd watched about an hour of it. And then I was like, so essentially this movie could go in any number of directions. And I kind of like a little bit anticipated and recognized that potentially anything that happens next isn't actually happening. And I don't know who it's happening to, because of it was really fun to play around with that just before going to bed and then watching what they actually chose to do with the thing. And I kept sitting there going, is this where they're going to like spin it a new direction? Is this what's going on? I'm like, no, I'm just going to stay with what's happening.
Yeah.
And see what rad that take me on. It's pretty phenomenal. And has Leo been in other action movies? I know he's in that spy thing. Catch Me If You Can?
Yeah, that was a lighthearted.
I don't know if I've seen him do action before.
That is a good point. I mean, The Beach, he was like running, and even Romeo and Juliet a little bit. I don't know. I'd have to look through his filmography. He's certainly never done the like, I'm going to be in a boxing movie and look at me get buff.
Sure.
He's never done that kind of thing.
But I don't recall if I'd ever seen him do fist fights and shooting before.
Gangs of New York.
Oh, yeah, I really did not appreciate that experience. So I may have
I'm pretty sure he did quite a bit of fighting in that.
Okay. I actually really liked him in that. I don't know that he would like specifically take on an action movie for the sake of an action movie.
Yeah.
It makes sense that he would do a bigger, weirder thing, but he pulled it off. I liked him.
I like Leo. I can't think of really any performances that he's given where I've been like, he was the weakest part of this movie.
There's the other sister.
Oh, is that one of the really early ones?
Or no, maybe he's not in The Other Sister. Sorry. I just because of his snotty crying of his under 20 years, I may have thought that he was Giovanni Ribisi or whatever that guy is. Yeah. Because like, who else is snotty crying? That's not him. But there's some snotty crying performances that are a little over the top.
What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, but I even some of the less great movies, I always felt like Leo does a good job. But that movie's a good ensemble cast too, and it just, say what you will, that man knows how to direct a movie.
Yeah, well, and I couldn't. So one of the reasons why I hadn't watched it is like, I think. Didn't Inception and Interstellar come in around the same sort of time?
No, Interstellar was the next movie. No, maybe Batman happened. There was quite a gap, but it was the next movie by Chris Nolan that wasn't Batman, and it had high hopes because Inception was so mind-blowing. People were like, "Oh wow, this is going to be the next big thing," and I did not care for Interstellar very much. Right.
So my brain did movie that starts with I, not very good, and people are upset about it. And I couldn't remember which one it was. So now
Inception's awesome.
I'm glad that's the first one of the two that I watched. So that's groovy.
Yeah, Interstellar is not bad. It's just that to me, I'm not going to spoil it, but the central like climax of the movie, the final point of the movie makes me go, really? That's where all this was going? Mm-hmm. And everything leading up to that is fucking awesome. And then it gets to that moment and it just all falls flat for me because I'm just like, oh, it's like 2001, A Space Odyssey ends with a Hallmark greeting card.
Oh.
And you're like, what? No. Existential horror, please.
Exactly. That's what most people want. Speaking of existential horror.
Yes. Good transition.
I was actually going to go back to High Fidelity.
Oh, God damn it.
We can make the point a different time.
No, I think inside an existential horror is a perfect transition. But yes, we can talk about High Fidelity.
So I watched it when it originally came out, and I really didn't enjoy Jack Black. I found myself being really irritated by the movie, and I was so irritated by Jack Black back then that it was hard for me to appreciate the other things going on in the movie. And that is mostly what I remembered. Annoying snobbery around music, Jack Black being like extra and grumpifying. So watching it back some 20 plus 30, whatever, I don't know the math of that, years later, I actually appreciated everything was going on kind of because I don't think people are douchey about music in the same way that we were in the 90s. There's the like creating a great mixtape. First of all, I think this whole movie is a time capsule of Gen X.
Yes.
And you know how there's like the anti-hero movie? Well, this is quintessential angsty hero movie. And that was the vibe of the 90s. All of the Breakfast Kid people grew up and then they were in Reality Bites and High Fidelity and Singles and a whole bunch of other things really grumpy. This includes Clerks, right? Yep. Where I felt pantsed this whole movie for the crux of this character being just unhappy most of the time for no good reason. And that's what we did. That was an ethos. Fucking Seinfeld and Friends live in that vibe. And every now and then I will wake up and hear myself and the thoughts that I have. And I go, oh my fuck, I'm being so very 90s right now. And theoretically, we're supposed to like move beyond this, but it's our generational plague, this melancholy.
It's flannel. It's Nirvana. It's grunge and even emo and goth were all 90s things.
Yeah, well, and since we do know things about child rearing and what happens in adulthood, we are the generation that was left at home by ourselves. And then the people below us recognized that was probably a bad idea, and then they became weird helicopter parents.
Yep.
Right? So it might make sense that we just don't feel lovable and okay at most times. So that is what I kept thinking about when I was watching this movie. Is like, oh, that's the whole theme. I actually forgot that it was about him like walking through his breakups,
his relationships,
needing to evolve in some way. And
that's why I think the movie actually stands the test of time. Is it is a time capsule, but there is a character journey, and it's a redeeming, relatively story of a kind of douchey, narcissistic dude who actually gets some perspective on himself, and that's really satisfying to watch and go through. I think that's why it resonated, and also that just the nerd thing about like I'm obsessed with this one thing, or I guess that's geek, right? No, what is it? Nerds? I
think it's geek. People have been using
people. I think the definition, as I understand it, is geek is anybody who's really into anything. Basically, like if you're beyond a fan of something, you're a geek. But a nerd is someone who is geeky about nerdy things like math and science and that kind of stuff. Yeah, I think.
Yes, I think they're geeks. I think they're music geeks.
Right. Yeah.
And it was sort of funny to kind of love those people, because those people drove me crazy.
Really?
When I was a musician. I was performing live around 13, 14, and there were all of these people who were just so snobbish about their music takes and do you
Yeah.
know the blah 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 and the such and the name of the band. Oh, it was just like brewery conversations here in fucking
It's
Portland.
hipster. It's hipster shit.
It's so boring because so the beer version, my friend and I came up with this when we moved back to Portland from Vegas. We were like 22 and we'd meet all these new people. And at the time, Portland was one of the only places that had all these microbrew things going on. It's all over the place now, but the conversation would sound like this. We'd be sitting with new people wondering if they're good or whatever. It's like, oh, what are you drinking? Oh, I am drinking beer. Oh, really? Oh, what's it like? Well, it's kind of like beer, but more beery than beer. And have you had beer? No, I've heard about beer. So this beer is like that beer and beer. And we're just like, fucking shoot me in the face. Cause that's the whole 45 minutes later.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, I think I'm ready to try beer. And I'm like, fuck, I thought we moved on. And that's what music conversation. Have you heard Band?
I believe that was intentional, that in that movie, they're meant to be a little bit insufferable.
Yes.
And that's like, you're supposed to feel a little bit of masochistic. Yeah.
But at this point, I'm watching and it's nostalgic, especially the super sad, quiet guy. Oh, I loved him so much. And it was actually quite fun to see these people in their prime. Like yeah. So I lovingly watched it this time and had a better experience and had a bit of my own healing around who someone's being in a relationship. Because sometimes what happens in my life, in my patterns, has been to like get really good, kicking ass at life, and then get in a relationship, and then whatever I was doing to be good sort of disappears, and I'm not entirely sure who I am in a relationship. Not as effective and awesome. I stopped doing the things I love and sort of morph into this maybe a lost person. Which is not my favorite thing to admit, but I did it anyway.
It's an interesting phenomena to notice.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know that I knew anybody who was actually in a relationship that was good growing up to have learned what the whole gosh darn point is and how to do it and what the ask of it.
That's a thing that I have, a realization I came to a long time ago, that most people, including myself, don't have any models of what a healthy relationship looks like. That there was that for many people, The Simpsons are one of the best examples of a healthy family and relationship. Like we look for moral. How do I handle situations? Well, give me other examples of like how couples, because drama requires conflict. So you can't show examples of couples that handle their conflicts without drama. Because we need the drama. That's what makes people tune in and watch. A show with an actually healthy couple would be boring to watch generally.
Well, and the other thing is that in the years where I was beginning to play out relationship stuff, the shows were going grittier because my earlier thoughts are, well, the first relationships I saw were Family Ties and The Cosby Show. Again,
Hallmark. That's what I is like. Yeah. It's totally superficial ideas and morality and advice that doesn't deal with anything substantive. And it's the Full House, where people are like, oh, like that's the moment where
and that was mostly about parenting and not about relationships. Yeah. But Roseanne is probably the relationship I've spent the most time watching. And unfortunately, I remember hearing myself in several, many years ago, like 12, 14, what's math? 14 or 15 years ago, in a relationship, hearing words come out of my face and thinking, fuck, I'm being sarcastic and shitty. I don't actually want to be. And I sound like a Roseanne episode. Yeah. And why is this happening?
Yeah.
Just sort of like out of body experience. I'm like, what are we doing?
Yeah. Well, and in real life, people don't have models either. Like I look back and I can Rolodex through all of the couples that I knew, and I'm like, none of them have what I want in my life right now, not even remotely close. Maybe there was a few who were flying under the radar and I didn't know what it was like behind closed doors, and it's actually great, but they hit it pretty well.
Totally. Yeah. Well,
all right, High Fidelity,
behind closed doors. Yeah.
Oh,
what is going on behind closed doors? She asks. Well, we got an inside look at someone's closed doors.
Okay, that's what we're talking about. Finally.
Yeah, okay.
I was like, how's she going to transition from closed doors to Avatar? I don't see this one.
Yeah, we'll talk about Avatar a different time. Okay. I'll remember. All
right, so I watched the thing on Netflix, and it very quickly, instantaneously became one of my favorite things, period, ever, in any category. So I know that I probably love this thing more than it actually is good, because it's very personal to me. And I have talked to a few people who didn't like it. So I'm very curious to hear what your experience of it was. And I have so many thoughts that I'm been dying to share. Basically, since I watched it, the soundtrack has not stopped playing in my head 24 hours a day.
Wow.
Like I wake up in the morning and there are songs playing, and it rotates like it's on shuffle. And I don't know how it'll go, like there'll be one line from one song that will go over and over and over, and then I'll be like, okay, and can we keep moving, hit the next button, and then it'll shift to something else. And I don't know, I'm hoping that maybe talking a lot of my thoughts out might help to like put another record on.
Often it does. Or if you like sing the whole song through yourself, it does it.
Yeah.
So we're talking about Bo Burnham's Netflix special, Inside, that apparently he shot over the course of a year in a room on his own property. And what do you suppose, what is the impulse? The impulse is, hey, it's pandemic. I had intended to return to performing live, and now we're all stuck inside. What if I do a comedy special in these times? What does that look like?
Yep. I mean, I think he maybe even already had the contract with Netflix, and then things canceled and he pivoted. But it's also, there's a return to form, because his start was making videos in his upstairs bedroom when he was 17 years old, by himself, just playing on a keyboard, talking to the camera. I mean, he was YouTube famous before YouTube was really even a thing. He was one of the biggest, earliest successes for YouTube. So there's something about revisiting the past that I also think was part of this project for him.
Nice. This is my first time seeing anything that he's done other than the Left Brain, Right Brain song that you've played
just
sometimes.
That one song? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That special prior to this was my favorite comedy special of all time. It's called What? And there's about 4 songs in there that all just blew me away, and I still think they're amazing. And I saw that show live, in addition to having watched it recorded. And until Inside. That was my favorite.
I kept purposely, so I've been hanging out on TikTok world a little bit, and I kept purposely skipping through anybody who would start to talk about Inside, except I did watch entirely this one person who was like, I want all of the lights. I want to own all of the pretty lighting that he has in this room. And the endeavor, like on one hand, I sort of want to talk about just the scale of the thing prior to talking about the themes in this. So apparently he's just shooting with what he's shown us is he's shooting with one SLR camera. I think there are many lenses and a bunch of different lights. And he's got just one of those Focusrite, maybe even just a 2 or 3. Like it looks like just a 2-channel like interface. He's got a projector and
keyboard,
3 moving light fixtures, some light bars, some like LED washes that can dim and
change
such.
colors. Yeah,
he's got a controller that I used to sell at Guitar Center. Like, I think there's about $5,000 of lighting gear. The
production design is one of the most striking things, and to me it speaks to his clear theater background, first of all, because he's played with lighting in his shows before, but they were all on stage, right? So he brought it into this different environment, and it also speaks to just putting some fucking thought and creativity into making what you're doing visually interesting. Every single one is recognizable instantly. You can take a screenshot from it and you're like, oh, I remember that song, because they all look different. Camera angles, I guess you call it cinematography, even though camera's not moving a ton, but the way that he frames shots. Like, I remember the one shot in particular where the camera is behind like the mic stands and he's like sitting there, and then he kind of like walks through all the stuff. One of the things that I know about Bo is that he loves to play with, is this real or is it not? So he does in the What special, he has this thing where he knocks the water bottle over and then he starts drinking, and then the song turns on and it goes, he meant to knock the water bottle over. And then he's like, theater is a lie. Nothing is real. And so he loves to play with this. So I watched the whole thing with the idea that he's trying to tell a true story, but I don't know how many of those moments were acted. Like, I think he may have been going, this is actually how I'm feeling, but I am going to go, okay, how do I get the lighting right and make sure that the camera is set up and make sure that I put it there, and then I'm going to film something that captures how I'm feeling, even though it might not be like truly the behind the scenes moments like it. And I don't know, maybe some of them were, but I suspect that some of them are way too intentional, the way that it's set up. But I love that feeling of like, what is this real, or is he really talking to us, or is he? I love that feeling. It's so psychedelic to me.
I'm very curious if he's. What I would love to see is if he does that behind the scenes, or I would actually, if he cares about YouTube anymore, I would love to see him do shorts of ideas and constructing and how he's doing it. Because one of the things that I also noticed, so he's sort of a musical comedian. So he writes funny songs and he's performing. I want to know how he's building songs, because I can write songs. It's been a minute since I've done so. And his ability to actually use current pop tropes in this show, I'm just like, because a lot of artists just do what they do. And they write their own fucking thing. But this guy, in addition to just doing his thing, he also incorporates new vocal layering and sound effects and new melodic trends that are going on.
When he first started going on stage, it was just a piano. It was just him and a piano. But clearly he loves music. Like, in his last special, he ends the show by saying, I went to a Kanye concert, and he did this thing where he turned on the auto tuner, and then he just started talking about his life, and mostly he was complaining about his $100 t-shirts not selling well enough. But then he's like, I thought I would do one that's maybe a little more relatable. And so then he does this long thing about Pringles cans and how you can't get your hand in them, and it's hilarious. And I got the sense I got to start talking about individual moments of Inside. I think the kind of climax of the special to me is the song All Eyes on Me, which is him in the white t-shirt and with the really big close up. And when I got to that moment, I was like, oh, I think he's like doing something he's seen. Like, he's been to concerts where somebody else did this and it moved him. And he's like, I want to do that. I want to take people on a journey to the point where when I get here, I do not know how else to describe it. The closest experience I've ever had to the way that I felt during that song is worship services at church.
Sure. Yeah.
Literally, you're like raising your hand and you're just feeling things. And it's like no words, no thoughts, just fucking raw emotion. And that's why, you know, that song's very repetitive. He says the same words over and over, but they capture poetic, archetypal experiences. That was when I felt like this one went somewhere that none of his other shows have ever gone, because he went, I'm going to be funny and I'm going to be poignant and I'm going to be challenging. And then I'm going to just come with me. I'm going to make you feel good. And that's what that moment felt like, is it's like the lines in that song about like, we're going to go where everybody knows everybody, and like, just fuck all that other stuff. Just forget it. Let it go. Just be here. Do this. Feel this. That was kind of when I was like, oh, okay, he's reached a new level. This is beyond anything he's ever done before.
Yeah. I might have liked it. It's possible I liked it. I did spend a lot of time with more awareness, because it was in this room and all of the tech that was happening. Tech geekery in me. Now, I'm not a lighting person. I've sometimes been forced to do some lighting in situations because of whatever my gig was. And I, at some point in my career on the tech end, would just lie about how much I knew about lights so that no one would try to hire me to do both jobs, because I think that's not fair.
Yeah.
So I did find myself geeking out about all of the gear and what he was doing and the choices, and seeing that and how it supported. Like, I spent a lot of time there just being very, very fascinated by that and fascinated by the structure of songs. So I spent a lot of time watching it more in the, and it was a choice I made at the beginning, because I was warned that this could be emotionally impactful and that sort of thing. So I was prepared for an emotional journey. And then in the first moments and the first song and the first couple of things, I think I recognized that the emotional experience that I was going to see was not going to mirror my own. And I was able to sort of giggle, because part of the emotional experience is how to be a white man right now who wants to be funny. And I remember hearing a part of me go, yeah, it must be hard. Bless his heart. That kind of thing. And I couldn't unthink that. Yeah. And then I just stayed, because I also don't necessarily like musical comedians.
Really?
It's not my favorite thing. Often because they'll pick up a fucking ukulele and fuck the ukulele. It's too happy. Also, I don't like happy songs. So I had to like calm some stuff that are parts of my own tendencies. And then I did just sort of like, his own awareness of the white guy and leaning in and out of that is pretty funny. And I think if I watch it again, which I may, I will have a different experience. But I was sort of teetering on it. I had a lot of anticipation about what was going to necessarily happen that maybe kept me from like being in the roller coaster that was happening.
I totally get that. I had the opposite experience where I went on the emotional journey first and then got tech geeky and started like analyzing and everything.
Yeah.
But I have a very different background in the sense that like, to me, this is like the ultimate success of the theater kid. And that's what I see. And that's what speaks to me, because I was that. And also white male, that definitely applies as well. And I think he speaks to a lot of insecurities that I definitely specifically deal with. I think what I love the most about it is how, I mean, there's so many things, but I love how honest and self-aware simultaneously that he can be. And he is like, I know I'm doing that on purpose. Like, it's so intentional the way that it plays with. And I also just, being this like I gotta share my thoughts. Like when I dawned on me that I was like, oh, this is how he kept himself from going insane.
Right.
This is the thing, and the meta nature of I'm gonna make a project about making the project.
Yep.
And having that like in and out experience of, okay, now we're in it, now we're out of it, and we're seeing it being made, and we're that's so like, to me, it's playing with the form. Like he's saying like, okay, what do I have to work with? What can I do that's different and fresh and interesting in this box, literally and metaphorically, that I have to be in? And then, then I can go through point by point and talk about individual songs and what they meant to me. There's a few that really stand out, but I'm curious, like, were there moments?
So one of the things that I was thinking is, my whole life, my default for creative challenges has always been to go meta. So the whole show reminds me of my conundrum of anything I've ever attempted to create, where I will frequently just go into, like, the numbers of times that when I had to write a story for school, I would write a story about a person who had to write a story and didn't know what to write about. That was the story that I turned in over and over again. And many different times others. I'm considering writing the I have to write my bio for my fucking bio on my website. I am considering it. And maybe that's fun. So watching him do this show that's supposed to be a show, leaning into his talents and what he does have to offer in a time where one would be very insecure about what they have to offer and whether it has value. Making that show is exactly, if anybody gave a crap of what I had to say, if I had like an audience and I was like, oh, I'm getting out there, I'm coming back, everybody, that's the show I would have written too and would have done. And I love the whole, I guess I'm going to say, conceit of use what you have. Use what you have and lean deeply into it and recognize and just call it out and tell the truth about where it's working, where it's not working, that sort of thing. The thing that was in my head and is also one of my ideas was the white women on Instagram. Because I don't know if I told you this, but for a while, I was just going to be using my Instagram to do what people who are influencers are doing, and also just take pictures of me near white women holding things and not talk about it. Just, hey, can you hold this up? Awesome. White women holding kale. And then me sort of photobombing, that sort of thing. I also, when I came up with that, I was joking about, so I was taking a walk in my neighborhood and I was joking about like all the different influencers, and I walked past beautiful Asian man opening up the back of his card with sportsy items back there. And I was like, I should take a picture with me with that guy. And then I was walking again and there was this blonde white woman doing yoga in the fucking park. And I was just like, nope, I already missed one of these. I'm going to do it. So I went up to her and told her my idea, and we took a picture of me like waving while white woman was doing yoga. Oh, it's fucking hilarious. Anyway.
So you're like an anthropologist or like a National Geographic explorer looking for, look, the white woman
in their
natural habitat.
Kind of, but mostly it was just like, how do you become an influencer? Well, you just take pictures of white ladies because they do really well on the internet. Yeah. So
that song stuck out to you.
Yes, it did.
Were there other ones that were favorites?
I do love the one that you mentioned, the trippy one. And the others don't stick out in my memory at the moment.
Well, can I go through
them? Please do.
Okay, so I love the lighting design, and the first one's called Content. It's the one when he has the disco ball and he looks up and it's, Daddy made you some content. I love that one. The comedy one, the one where he's talking about, should I do this? The line, the thing about like, and he references it again at the end about not, how can you be funny at a time like this? How can you be funny when nobody's laughing in the background. And the line at the very end when he says, I have a fun idea. Next time I'll sit on the couch and watch you. I want to hear you tell a joke when no one's laughing in the background. And there's so much like pain and like suffering in that. Like one of the impressions I get is that he very clearly loves his art, and he really does suffer for it. And I don't think people usually share that in a way, because it's like I don't know, like I would be hesitant that I would make my audience feel bad. Like I don't want you to feel bad that I'm suffering, but he's like very clear that no, this is really hard, and I want you to know that. And I'm still doing it, and I still love it.
That's one of the things that I related to most, I think. I'll make it short. I don't know if I told you the story of, so I'd always wanted to do stand-up comedy. And somewhere around 21, 22, I went to a Rita Rudner book signing, and I asked her, should you just get up and try stuff, or should you write it down? She's like, well, write it down. So I did. I went home, I wrote it down, and I picked that I was going to go to Henry's Tavern to do open mic comedy Tuesday, September 11th, 2001. Seriously. So that was, 9/11 was going to be my comedy debut. And then nobody was ready to laugh for at least 6 months until Gilbert Gottfried got up at a Bob Saget roast.
Yeah.
And his bit broke the air that had been over our country for that long. And finally, people were ready to laugh again. And if you go back and look at what he did in the roast, it was like, it's really good. But I relate to that. And in this last year, not knowing whether I could be funny or post fun things when everybody was deciding how we're supposed to fight racism and all that. Yeah, that was the thing that I most related to.
The poignancy of the moment when he says, you want to hear a funny story about the panic attacks, and about, like, he doesn't overtly hit you over the head with why it was such a big deal that right when he was ready, then the pandemic happened. But every time you hear that story, you're like, it's like of course that would happen. And that, I feel, was one of the things that everybody can relate to, that Absolutely. Having had that experience within the last year. There's a bunch of funny lines in the comedy one. I like when he's talking about the indescribable power of your comedy, healing the world with comedy. It literally making the world a better place, literally making the world a better place, metaphorically or whatever. Yeah. Then FaceTime with my mom tonight, which one was pretty good, kind of a one joke thing, but it was funny. Then the fucking sock puppet, how the world works.
Oh my God.
Which was like 3 layers, where the first one you're like, okay, I see what you're setting up. Oh shit. And then the last segment was even more meta. And then he finally turns, that is how the world works. And you're like, yes, I need a shower.
Yes. The world is like that.
Oh my God. That song. So then White Woman's Instagram, which is again a little bit of a one joke song, but it was still really funny. And then the unpaid intern song, and then the commentary thing about like, I'm commenting on my commentary, and then at one point he's just like, I want this to stop. And like the way the use of that to comment on the direction the internet is going and social media, and it's such a creative way to make a point that's so much deeper. Comedy is hypnosis, and hypnosis is teaching. It's transformative. Stop me if you want to comment on any of it.
I was, the one thing I did want to say, which was weird for me. Again, I'm working on neurotransmitters over here, and I went to the dentist. That's me referencing the fact that I'm taking amino acid therapies to work on balancing neurotransmitters and hormones and stuff, just in case people didn't watch the previous episodes when I bring it up. So I'm at the dentist, and there's a screen showing beautiful scenes of like Switzerland and Scotland and all these different beautiful places, and these like ornate, magically big and old buildings. And for the first time in my life, I'm looking at these like overhead scenes, these like drone photos or whatever, and just thinking, I wonder how many slaves for how long it took to build those, because apparently my brain is in a very literal place right now. And for the first time, I'm just like, yeah, there's a lot of slavery that built most, like those buildings. Probably people got paid to build those buildings, but slaves, that's slavery right there. Because that's really, no, who else would do that? No one would pay for that.
So you're still thinking about the How the World Works song. I gotcha.
No, that happened before the How the World Works. And so when I see the How, I'm like, I know slavery, it's awful. When will we stop building our lives? Maybe NASA didn't use slaves, but we built the country that made NASA on slaves. Oh, I don't know.
Well,
I was asking.
Speaking of slaves,
yeah.
One of my other favorite fucking songs are the 2 Jeff Bezos songs.
Oh, yeah.
I cannot stop laughing hysterically whenever he sings those ones. And the irony of congratulating him, like, you did it. Like, you're done. What are you doing? Like, you have enough. It's so funny to me. Yeah.
What's the outfit in the second one? What do you suppose that outfit is?
I don't think I noticed the outfit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The giant moss monster costume.
Oh, right. It's
with
like camo,
crown?
like if you're duck hunting or something. I don't know why, but both of those ones are so, like, they feel like a thing that he was just like fucking around with something, and then he's like, I'm just gonna leave it.
Yeah.
The sexting song was fine. The Look Who's Inside Again one was really interesting. That one is where he's like trying to be funny and I'm stuck in a room, which that feels like your writing project. Is he's like, okay, I'm gonna play this and I'm gonna sing trying to be funny when I'm stuck in a room. And then it goes into, I was a kid who was stuck in my room. And then that line when he says, what you went, hey, look who's inside again. You went out to look for a reason to hide again. Well, now, buddy, you found it. Now come out with your hands up. We've got you surrounded. That is one of the most beautifully poetic, agoraphobic, like so amazing. That one really gets me every time. I have lots more.
Yeah. Okay.
You want to keep going? Okay.
Sure.
I think the Problematic song was very funny. That one really got me.
I'm so confused. I wonder if it's true is the thing.
What?
And also the truth of the thing that he feels problematic about.
Which things? And then he's like, now I'm throwing out anything, and he comes up with the Aladdin thing. And then I love the end when he's like, I gotta go home and burn it. Wait, not burn it. Wait, should I burn it? Is burning it bad?
Yeah. I love that.
The next one is I'm turning 30, which is so universal. I think that one is just like, I love when he's like, ew. And the final line when he's I'll do it in 2030, I'll be 40 and kill myself then. And like, I feel like every time you hit one of those decades, you're like, when you're 20, you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to be 30. I'll kill myself when I'm 30. And then when you're 30, you're like, 40. Oh my God. And yeah, I don't know if that ever stops.
Do people actually talk about that though?
What?
I definitely I don't know. I think I have an annual Should I Die review. Like, did I live well enough this year to keep going? It's a little rough. I usually do continue living, but
usually so far.
Yeah. But boy, do I just sort of like rack up all of my like the worsts of the year, or the like I only measure all the things that I didn't do somehow. Annually.
A lot of that. I mean, I'm aware of the part of me that is capable of doing those comparisons. But honestly, I've not. He had a thing about being used to being the young one, and like everybody recognizing him and being like, "Oh my God!" I definitely had that because I went to college when I was like 14 years old, so I know exactly what he's talking about. But I also was really used to being friends with a lot of older people who were a lot more mature than me. And then at some point I ended up with a friend who was like quite a bit younger than me. And I sort of like stopped really thinking about age at that point. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it. I honestly don't remember how old I am a lot of the time. And I sort of feel like it's more about how old do I feel.
Yeah. I'm turning 42 next month. And I've been 42 since I was 13 or 14. I've just felt 42. And now it's going to actually happen. And I'm very confused about it. Yeah. What's the other next song? Is it the guitar one?
No, we're not there yet.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so we'll go through these ones quick. There was the one, are you enjoying the show? I'd ask you, but I don't really want to know. I love that one as a performer, and especially as someone who has a lot of anxiety about not live performances. Like, I don't like making videos for the internet. This is fine because I'm talking to you, but just talking to the internet and being like, I don't know what you're thinking. Like I have that same thing. And so a lot of that spoke to me. Then there's the two songs, I Feel Like Shit, which I think was really funny. And then the all-time low song where he's like, I feel terrible. I feel okay when I'm asleep, but as soon as I wake up, I get a feeling in my body, which is, and the lighting, and like, that's another one where you go, he's playing with, he seems really authentic and real. And then the lighting changes and the music starts. So clearly it's premeditated, but those songs make me giggle too. Then Welcome to the Internet is next, which blew my mind. You said you saw that one beforehand. Is that right? No. Okay.
No.
That was somebody else. I was talking to somebody else, who hadn't seen the whole thing yet, but they saw that one.
Interesting.
So yeah, I the Welcome to the Internet one, the commentary, the subject matter, the way that it's put together, the lighting design. Honestly, the thing that's most striking to me about that song is I like the archetype that it's playing with, the like evil, seductive con man who's like the cackling laughter that is like, step right up. And it's got that, I don't know, like the Pied Piper. Like, I don't know what the archetype is, but it's of someone who seems very compelling, but they're not trustworthy and they're evil.
So it's not Pan?
No, Pan was not that.
More trickster?
Yeah.
Than that? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but it the way the music is also has something. I'm trying to figure out what he's referencing, but to me it's such a deep. I imagine someone on a stage in front of like a stage coach. You know what I mean? Like with an I don't know. I'm not sure what it is, but there's the glasses and everything about that song is so well put together and cohesive. And then the point that it's making about everything, a little bit of everything, all of the time. Whew! Sell your soul to something, whatever that thing is. He's embodying it. I love that song. What did you think of that one?
I am only partially remembering it because of that last line. I'm like, I've heard that last line. I don't recall this one.
Oh, really?
For some reason.
Welcome to the Internet. have a look around?
Oh yeah, okay. I thought
Yeah.
you went on to a new one. No, sorry.
No, we were talking about that one.
Okay.
So the next one after that is the second Bezos song. We'll skip that. Then probably my favorite song, and it's very hard. Like I literally cannot listen to this song too much because it's so emotional, is That Funny Feeling, the one with the guitar. That one is something special. So I want to hear your thoughts about that.
Uh-oh.
Oh, you asked, is that the one with the guitar? I thought
no, yeah. So I'm just saying, because like I felt very nervous to do this episode because I don't know that I have anything useful to say about these sorts of things. I remember him introducing it by saying, I'm not very good at guitar. And I remembered thinking, he is not very good at playing the guitar.
Well, he did apologize.
I know. It's like, that's fine. He doesn't know how to do music. But then during the song, I just kept thinking, I haven't played my guitar in a while, but when I play my guitar, I am better at playing the guitar than his guitar is happening. And I was like, yeah, keep watching the show. Things are happening. You should
watch this a second time.
Like, I love the fire effect. I love the mood that's created.
So the theme.
Yeah, what's the theme
of that song is he's talking about a funny feeling, right? There it is again, that funny feeling. And then when I was talking to a friend of mine about this, he's like, what do you think the funny feeling is that he's pointing to? And I think in the verses, he just keeps mentioning examples of things that all make you feel something. And I'm trying to think of the examples. The only ones that are coming to mind right now are Steve Aoki and Logan Paul. But
oh yeah, I think that may have been the other thing. There are a bunch of things being listed that I didn't know what they were.
Okay. So yeah, I got most of the references, and ultimately he kind of, I think he gives it away at the end when he's singing at the end, and the feeling is well, we were overdue. There's a line that he says, 20,000 years of this, 7 more to go. And I feel like that is a song about maybe the world is over. Maybe it's all going to end. Maybe it's all going down the toilet and the end of the world has already happened and we're just waiting. And to write what feels like a sweet and gentle and really beautiful song about that fucking feeling that's the place where I go in a lot of my very deep meditations. Is there's another line in the song, the quiet comprehending of the ending of it all. And that to me is what that funny feeling that he's talking about is. Shit, everything's gonna end. And to have somebody get real quiet and say, let's sing about this. Let's sing about the ending of everything, and maybe it's all over.
Yeah. Which
that is so hard to grab somebody's hand and walk people into that feeling. I think it takes a lot of. Go ahead. Sorry,
it's very different than Kumbaya, which is what that scene looks like it's going to be.
Yes, and I think again that's intentional. It's around a campfire, and it feels to me like a big brother or a wise old uncle who's just like sharing his thoughts about what he sees in the world. I mean, I very much see Carlin in him, in his commentary and almost hopelessness about everything, but. I also think that, artists like that don't continue to make art if they truly give up hope.
Yeah.
And I think that's... Go ahead.
I saw Carlin in the silhouette shot that Bo did on the song way at the top about whether it's appropriate to do comedy at this time. There was some, and I don't know, I might go search images of Carlin, but there was some sort of iconic profile shot that reminded me of Carlin at the time.
I got to check that out. It could be. Yeah. So then the next one after that was the All Eyes on Me song, which makes me cry every fucking time I listen to it. And I've listened to it 500 times probably at this point. And it really, again, it captures something to me that I haven't felt very often, outside of like religious experiences. There's the lines in that one. You say the ocean's rising, like I give a shit. You say the whole world's ending, honey, it already did. You're not gonna slow it. Heaven knows you tried. Got it, good. Now get inside. And that is like, to me, I hear that as him singing to all the people whose hearts are bleeding for the world right now, and saying like, I know that you see all this pain and suffering in the world. And it's, oh God, again, it's just like, come here, come inside. There's something so welcoming and comforting and sweet about it. And it's also just like a sexy, beautiful, awesome song. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's magic. Like, music is one of the closest things to real magic I've ever encountered in life. And it's, I don't understand it. I don't understand why it works the way that it does. And I don't know if anybody really does, but it fucking works.
Do you have one of these shows inside you? Is what I kept wondering when I watched the whole thing.
I think I have some things like this, not that. Not this, and probably not musical, because I love music, but I also I know enough about music to know how much work I would have to put into getting good at it. But I do feel like there are ideas and moments and experiences that I want to facilitate happening in the world, and I prefer live, but so does he. And I think that's a big part of what this was. It was super inspiring to me, intimidating as fuck.
Yeah.
Like, I think like this is what happens when you give a genius some money and a year and just say, sit in a room and do something interesting. And like, yeah, I don't throw the word genius around lightly, but to me, Bo Burnham is it just, I will say, I can't remember if I told you this already. I cannot shake the thought, why the fuck has Bo Burnham and Donald Glover not partnered up and done a collaboration yet? I mean, they're both hilarious, brilliant comedians who are also really, really musically talented and very like deep thinkers. And why has that not happened? Somebody make that happen. I'm officially putting it out into the universe. You can have all my money. I just want to see what those two brilliant artists would come up with if you put them together. That would be insane. Yeah,
I'm not familiar with the other guy. Is it a guy?
Glover?
Yeah, I don't.
You know Childish Gambino? Did you see the song "This Is America"? It was wow.
No, I'm just thinking of like Danny.
Did you watch Community?
No.
Yeah, well then I don't think you would. Did you see the new Han Solo movie, the Star Wars?
I missed this person entirely.
Donald Glover's amazing. He's hilarious. He's a stand-up comedian and a comedian. He was a writer on 30 Rock. He had his own sketch comedy troupe called Derek Comedy. There's some really funny old clips of him on YouTube. And then he was in Community. He had his own Comedy Central special. He was brilliant in Community. And they were kind of positioning him to be like the next Eddie Murphy. Like they were like, you're going to be the biggest new comedian, the hot new thing. And he quit his contract on Community and ended up like getting fined because he left before it was over. And he released this statement on Instagram or something where he like wrote on some piece of paper and he said, I'm leaving comedy because for me, comedy is the easy path. And I'm going to go become a rapper because that scares the living shit out of me.
Wow.
And then he quit his job, probably lost millions of dollars from doing that, and then became the biggest, I guess, hip hop star like huge platinum albums, several of them, really big deal. And then wrote, directed, and starred in the TV show called Atlanta, that got a ton of awards, and it's about like the rap industry and things like that, and it's amazing. So he left comedy. To me, it's a very hero's journey thing, that he was like, I could just stay here where I'm really comfortable in comedy. But because he had the courage to leave that behind, he can do whatever he wants. He's directing, writing, starring in things. He played Lando Calrissian in the new Han Solo movie. And anyway, he's awesome. And I really like his music. It's some of it is really, really good. Nice. And I'd love to see them do stuff together.
I'll go try to figure out which one of those things to watch of his.
There were, I think Atlanta. Well, I don't know. I think you might like Atlanta. Community is great. The first few seasons of Community are some of the best TV I've ever seen. They're really, really funny.
Nice.
So after the All Eyes on Me, there's the song Goodbye, which is, so funny how many songs have like, so long, goodbye, like that's fucking all the way back to Sound of Music. Anyway, that song had a lot of really, there's a couple of moments in that one where the voice comes back. There's this weird robotic voice that starts singing, well, look who's inside again. And he's naked. And there's like a spotlight on him, and he's so like gangly and weird looking. And it's so raw and honest and vulnerable. And I'm so jealous of that. Like, that is what I want to find a way to artistically share everything with the world so that I have no secrets. And I think there's something about just going and like being all white and pale and tall and gangly and naked in front of the fucking world, that at when you're done with that, what else do you have to worry about? Like you've shared it. There's something so liberating about that to me, and so inspiring and courageous, I think. He does not want to make himself look good in some of the scenes. Like, I mean, that's not true, because in the All Eyes on Me one, he's like really sexy and like,
super pretty. Yeah.
So it's more like he's willing to sacrifice his dignity for a point or a joke, or the show, if you will. I will say that I think the ending, where he's sitting in the room and then there's a glimmer of light and then he goes outside and then the door closes and then it turns out it's like a sound stage and everybody's watching. That ending is there's so many twists that I honestly, that's the only part that I'm like, I'm not even sure exactly what point he's making. I think it might be that when you're finally able to leave again, you still feel trapped, or I don't know. I was waiting for like a really clear message to the whole thing, and that felt like a confusing. I feel like I'm dumb though. Like I think
it was in his imagination. So what I got is that the whole time he's not entirely sure that like he's somebody who's drawn to the audience applause and whether they're gonna like it or not. And then he finally goes out and he imagines the pause happening. So I don't think that that's real. So it's like suddenly everyone is clapping and he's outside again, and but then he's talking about like not knowing who he's going to be after the thing is done.
Right. Yeah.
And so a little of that.
Yeah. I felt like that was one of those ones where like when I watched Annihilation the first time, where I'm like, I'm pretty sure this means something. And I'm pretty sure I'm too dumb to understand what it is.
Yeah.
I don't think this is just like somebody being artsy fartsy and they don't know what they mean. Similarly,
I had that long ass, I don't know if I talked about it in the show, but I had this project that I had all the energy in the world back in July when I made this proposal to teach this communication workshop. And then it kept getting pushed out and pushed out and pushed out. So for this entire pandemic, as my brain is going, in my, level of fears up and sometimes and stress and whatever, I've been trying to create this freaking project and working on. So then I do it. And it's not a public facing one. It's this this workshop I put on for a business group, and that's great. And they paid me for it, and that's amazing. And it went really, really well. And I finally got it done. And I was proud of myself. And I remember I like to go out and like stare out at the world from my different porches at my house. And I'm like, yeah, I did the thing.
Now what?
And then it's just stupid children playing next door and fucking lawnmowers and like the world's like, yay for you. We don't fucking care.
Yeah.
You went through this year-long experience and good for you. Have a fucking cookie. Like there's some sort of anticlimax and then sort of this, now I don't know what the hell to do because that's all I've been trying to work on.
And this thing about like, okay, even now, like going out of the room, I feel like is symbolic of releasing the special. Like he sees the light and he goes out of the room and that's him putting it out there. And then the idea is, okay, you're all going to clap for me. But I feel like what he's saying is I'm still trapped here. And that's a very down ending, but it's a pretty down. I mean, that's one of the main things from people I've found who didn't like it, where this is so heavy and intense. I don't need this in my life right now. It's almost like watching a horror movie for some people. But to me, the balance of emotional and deep and funny and then also just artistic and it merges perfectly for me.
Well, essentially he releases something in the world and it gets accolades, but he's still going to be the gawky white comedy guy who's trying to artistically find his way through his life. He's still going to have the demon of wanting to be creative and making stuff that people are into and saving the world, literally, metaphorically.
Yeah.
It's not like that quest is done.
Yeah. Check out a song called Art is Dead. It's one of his older songs, but that was another one when I first heard it that I was like, whoa, okay. This is not just silly fart jokes. He's trying to say something. I gotta say, I don't see myself finding something else I'm going to be this excited about for a long time.
Yeah.
I haven't felt this moved by something. And I said at the beginning, I don't know if that I probably like this better than it actually is. But I will say it seems like a lot of other people are resonating with it too. So
yeah. Well, and it's interesting that you talked about it as a theater thing, because I imagine that one-person shows like this have existed in the theater a lot. So bringing it to Netflix and to the masses, because a lot of people don't go to theater, is a big deal. And a lot of people are like, oh, he's pushing the boundaries of comedy, which is sort of true. But there are also sorts of other people who've also released, like, I keep geeking out lately about how Maria Bamford got there first for a lot of things. So the Maria Bamford show in 2007 is Maria shooting in pretty much one room a bunch of different characters. She would do voice characters of her family as a stand-up comedian. So then she just turns this world. She creates a whole world where she's all of the people. Yeah. And she's positioned in such strange ways. She's straight up, if you go watch it, it's on YouTube, the Maria Bamford show.
I've seen it. She's awesome.
It's like she invented TikTok. Everything that is sketch world on TikTok, people playing different people, she did that in 2007. So it's, so it's kind of funny.
I don't feel like he necessarily invented a lot here. What I feel like he did was perfected a lot. Like this is like peak YouTube. On Netflix. And that's what I remember thinking is like the way this is edited and put together is it's just a bunch of YouTube videos strung together, but it does have an album like feel where it flows in a really smooth way and it transitions intentionally from one to the other. But it does feel like someone being like, okay, well, how can you take what everyone else has done for YouTube art and take it a step up? I don't feel like it was super like original in that way. Although I would say putting it together the way that it is original. Totally. Yeah.
I think it's good. I think we need more of it. I love that he answered the creative call of this time. And I know that people in trauma aren't very creative. So creativity likes constraints, but it doesn't like trauma. And so a lot of the very, very, very creative people are kicking themselves because like, oh, I had all of this time theoretically, but no access. So one of the things I marveled at through the whole thing is like, I'm impressed that he had access to this much of himself to even fucking do this in this time.
Yeah. And the fact that he made it about his own emotional struggle, that's even more rare, I think, to be able to access this. And I think that's why I had the impression that this was therapy. I mean, he probably was doing therapy too, but this was his way of processing his frustration and his concerns and anxieties. And that when you say like, do you have one of these, that I definitely feel like I have. Like I want to master the ability to work my thoughts out in a way that is valuable and entertaining for other people. And that's what I feel like that is. I don't ever think I'm going to be a songwriter of that caliber.
Totally.
But I think that's not the only way to do that, or to utilize the sounding board of the world and the internet as a way to process stuff.
Totally. Well, essentially, it's a 90-minute journey, and you are actually well trained in taking people through 90-minute journeys, because that was 90 minutes and 2 hours was your training arc.
Yeah, well, and it's a good example of what you can do if you really, really prepare your 90 minutes.
Right on. Well, I will watch it again, and I'll come back with different things. Yeah,
I think given your first impression, and also there was a lot of pressure on it. There was a lot of different people's opinions.
You had watched it. You're like, I think I've watched it like 5 or 6 times when you're telling me about it.
I know. That's why I had to start with, like, I get it if you don't like it. But even your response of, I think I like it, give it another shot. It's worth watching twice. The second time, it was better for me. So
perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's like sex then. It just keeps getting better.
Yeah. Is that true for everybody about sex? I don't know if that's true.
I don't know. I've heard rumors about how sex is supposed to be. I think not all of them have panned out.
I think for a lot of people, sex gets worse over time.
That is also true.
Well, I think this may be a record-breaking show in the sense that I think this is the longest show we've ever done. But,
oh my gosh.
I enjoyed talking about it. Thanks for letting me vent all my thoughts.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm glad it exists for you. Congratulations.
My girlfriend and I, she sent me a Facebook group, an invite to a Facebook group that's something like, help, I've watched Bo Burnham's Inside and I'm not okay. And it's just people posting like different thoughts that they are having about it. And I haven't posted anything in it, but I've been reading other people's stuff. Yeah.
The cool news is, even though you've sort of at the end here talked about the things and sort of done spoilers, it's so packed with meaning all over the place that it's hard to keep it all in.
Yeah, there's no way, unless I went through literally every line in the 90-minute special, because there's so many. There's very little filler. It feels really tight and fresh and interesting, and keeps you guessing. I love it. Okay. Yeah. All right, I'm done.
Okay.
So next time we can talk about any number of the other half dozen movies that you watched that you mentioned.
Yeah, it's a problem. I also watched Loki, so we can talk about Loki too.
We can talk about Loki if there's enough to talk about. And I'd love to talk about Contact and Avatar. That'd be a great next show.
Sweet. Okay.
All right, maybe I'll even brush up on... I've seen both of them a few times, but I don't know if I can watch both of them before our next show. But
that's fair.
Cool. All right, well, let's wrap it up.
All righty. Thanks for being here, people.